We all know that domestic violence is a personal issue, a family issue. Often, though, it is not a private issue. Domestic violence is so ubiquitous, we know it by its initials, DV. DV and all of its aftermath has a way of spilling out into the streets, into our neighborhoods, and ultimately into our police stations and courtrooms and even our morgues. And DV makes its way into the daily headlines and onto TV screens as the nightly news comes on every evening. It seems we can't get away from reports of violence that begins at home. In many areas of the country, work is underway to coordinate efforts to fight the violence. In Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee, that effort is being led by the Erase Domestic Crime Collaborative. The collaborative works to build community awareness and push for reforms and services for victims and batterers and their children. Among many other steps taken, the group hosted a public discussion by a panel of DV survivors prior to a screening of the Hollywood film Precious. In Tennessee and across the country, most types of violent crime have been on the decline, but not crimes related to domestic violence. Family violence. Those have been steadily climbing.
A year ago, Memphis and Shelby County were reeling under a record-breaking number of domestic homicides. 34 of our citizens, including 12 children, were killed by someone in their household. So that's where we were a year ago. Tonight, we can report that domestic homicides have dropped. Only 9 the first 6 months of this year, 9 too many, but the number's down. We have to also report that overall domestic crime is up. It's up 7.4%, while other categories of crime in our community are down from last year.
I oversee all investigations for the city of Memphis. Anytime a crime is committed, obviously there's an investigation that follows. One case that just comes to everybody's mind is the O.J. Simpson case in California. And I think that we all have a sensitive heart toward that case because it got national attention, but it got national law enforcement attention as well. And along with that, we as a law enforcement agency started educating victims a lot more. We started educating our officers into the aspects of that crime of domestic violence. And it made them better, more well-rounded investigator, but it also made an investor get out to the community.
The DV problem cuts through all cultures and income levels. While the vast majority of victims are females, males are victims as well. Reginald Johnson is a survivor. He was the victim of abuse at home when he was a boy.
And around the age of 13 or so, my mother fell in love with a man. Now, I had never seen a man in the house or haven't seen my mother with a boyfriend, but somewhere around middle school, she fell in love with a man that she met. And immediately, things began to change. It's my best recollection, maybe 2 months of being there, he said he had to go. And I come to understand today it's that old alpha male syndrome that when you got another man in the house is too small for 2 men. But I was only a child, so my mother immediately sends me to my grandmother. And I don't even know the words to describe what I really was going through as a teenage kid. Not only dealing with the self-esteem issues, but the abandonment issues.
Today, Johnson leads a nonprofit group in Memphis called Boys Incorporated, and he speaks out against the violence. Although DV is a problem for every victim, including learning how to navigate the justice system, getting help can be particularly tough for people for whom English is a second language.
The day of the hearing, I was very nervous because he was there and I was afraid of what could happen if my appeal was denied. After a long hearing and seeing the evidence, the judge decided to grant me and my child the order of protection. It was a victory that helped me regain trust in myself. I felt empowered.
Violence at home touches the lives of people beyond their homes, in schools and churches, at restaurants and retail stores, and even at work. Typically, we haven't thought of domestic violence as a workplace concern, but it is. And today, more businesses and corporations are beginning to recognize that fact.
One thing about the workplace is it's one of the consistent behaviors in our life. We have to be there at a certain time, we leave at a certain time. It's something that we can lock individuals in on. Suspects and offenders know that.
Employers are starting to see that when employees are affected by violence, so are the companies, offices, agencies, and institutions they work for. A few years ago, the Ashley Scott murder case in Memphis emphatically brought to the public's attention how ongoing abuse at home can affect the lives of co-workers. Ms. Scott was a teacher at Bolton High School in Shelby County. Many of her co-workers knew of the problems she was having, but they didn't know what to do. Escalating domestic violence finally ended in her death, for which her husband was found guilty in a 2009 murder trial. During the course of the trial, some of her co-workers testified about what they knew of the violence in the Scott home. Domestic violence is being recognized as a problem for employers and a hindrance in the workplace. An effort in Albuquerque shows what is possible when employers take action.
Well, I think the inevitability is there. It's going to occur. I think it's how well you're prepared for that to occur, and how well you're prepared to see the warning signs before it occurs.
Domestic violence experts say awareness is key to preventing these tragedies. That's why 90 business managers from around Albuquerque met Thursday with police and counselors for a training session focusing on family violence in the workplace.
In Memphis, too, some employers are recognizing that DV is a problem, and they are taking measures toward more security and training.
We had a situation in Memphis where an individual was killed at a particular hospital here in the city in the parking lot. When the victim arrived at work, of course the offender was waiting on the victim. A confrontation happened and the worst end possible happened. She was killed before she could run to safety. The hospital took a very proactive stance after this incident occurred. They had immediate meetings, involved law enforcement in the meetings. They conducted a plan of action, and the hospital became very conscientious about the potential of violence in the workplace and the potential of domestic violence in the workplace. They began to educate employees. They brought together a strong security measure for in and out traffic. They beefed up their security system, and it's my understanding they beefed up their camera system. And they are continuing that endeavor to this day.
The good news for employers is there are resources to help them navigate what seems like difficult terrain. Some of these resources are listed on the Raising Families, Erasing Violence website.
If you've got an employee that's productive and vibrant, and all of a sudden that pattern changes, they're late to work now, they seem more recluse, there's probably something going on. They need to have strong controls about family visits, people just showing up unannounced. Personal phone calls on the telephone can generate a potentially violent situation if there's an ongoing issue at home that no one's aware of. I think a lot of it stems from good basic training and management skills as to really knowing your individual employees and what their habits are. And I think that we know enough about our business. We know the habits of our business. And if you see something out of the ordinary, I think you need to address it swiftly.
The fact is, domestic violence has never been just a private matter. And today we're more aware than ever that it takes all of us, the whole community, working together to stop the violence and keep people safe, at home, around our neighborhoods, and at work.